All right, guys, welcome back to the Will to Fight podcast. Podcast is already doing awesome, so thank you so much for coming on, commenting, giving us a great rating. It's what it's all about for us, and we just want to add value to you guys. I talk about honor all the time, and that's one thing on the first episode that I really wish I drove home, and I just want to stop and take a moment to do that right now, because everything that we're capable of and everything that we're allowed to do in this country, it comes with a great cost and sacrifice of so many people that have laid the foundation for us to be able to have this type of freedom. And there's not a single day that goes by that I don't appreciate that. And I want to make that known about who I am and why that's important to every podcast that we do. I truly believe that we have the will to fight because of these men and women and everybody that steps up and serves every day to be the shield between what's good and what's evil. And it sets the foundation for everything in this country. So I'm going to take a quick moment for a moment of silence. I don't care if you're driving, you're working out. I just want you to reflect on what set this foundation for us in this country and why it's so important for us to honor that in order to move forward and set that foundation every day. Every day my feet hit the ground, I think about those men willing to step up and give everything for us. So take advantage of every second that you have, no matter what you're doing, no matter what your opportunities are. Don't waste it, and make sure that you're living a life that those guys and women would be proud of us getting up every single day to attack our lives. I'm pumped, and I continue to be pumped about these podcasts. There's really exciting stuff going on, especially in Dynamis. We just launched a brand new training website. So if you go to crusheverything.com and you click on the training tab, it's going to take you to a whole online portion of training. I've been traveling the country and training military units and citizens and law enforcement for a long time now. And it's not easy to go and travel and be on the road and get in-person training. And it's awesome. And there's nothing that's ever going to replace in-person and hands-on training, but the online subscription platform is just a huge asset for us to be able to engage with people across the board and be able to load that up into our website so you can sustain that training and you have access to it 24/7 when you get on board. We just launched an Armor Up program, which is a fitness program, and also opened up a limited amount of open enrollment courses. So go check that out on crusheverything.com, hit the training link, or you can go to train.dynamisalliance.com, and that's going to show you all of the available training that we have for being able to protect yourself, your family, and just make yourself better. The next thing is Adaptive X. We've got a brand new pair of jeans, American-made apparel that we're getting ready to release. They're called the Redemptions. And, you know, I love being able to say that it's made in the USA. Like, it's such a rare thing now. You know, there's so many people out there making stuff overseas. It just feels good. And we did a post. We threw an American flag out there and it got so much interaction. People were just excited to be able to, like, you know what? Screw Levi, screw the people that are making stuff overseas. I'm going with you just because you're committed to that manufacturing made right here in the US. So go check out adaptivex.com. We're continuing to improve every single day. It's a commitment that I've made. I'm excited about the growth of that company, and we got a pair of badass jeans getting ready to release. This episode is sponsored by Redcon1, and I continue to evolve my relationship with these guys, and everything that they do, not only it gets me to laugh, but it gets me to engage, and I just get great feedback from everybody using the product. You know, I've been pushing it for a while now because it's something that I believe in. It's a brand that I believe in. I went down to Boca Raton, linked up with the CEO, Aaron Singerman, and he just kind of gave me an insight to everything that they're doing, and their operation is absolutely awesome. Great people working with Redcon1, and we got to film a little bit. I'm not one to do comedy. Like, I don't usually get out of my comfort zone with comedy. Everything I usually do is pretty serious, but they got me to push my comfort zone a little bit, and I did a commercial down there with them, and it was freaking hilarious. It just came out so good. But the quality of the product is on point. I've been using it for a while now. Very, very consistent. And everything from Total War, you know, I got the Orange Crush right here. And the consistency with Total War, I always hear people say that their workout or their pre-workout fades away over time and they kind of get used to it. And this definitely has an element to not getting used to the product. It's had the same effect ever since I started using it. So if you're looking for a pre-workout and you're tired of the same old stuff that's not working for you, try Total War. I just got the America flavor, which was a limited run that we did. It was 1776. That's how many they made, and I was pumped to get that as well. But Redcon1's just a badass company, and I'm so pumped for the progress that they're making in the industry. So go check them out. If you're looking for new supplements, definitely go check out redcon1.com. And this episode had a lot to do with going down to Boca Raton. I linked up with Aaron, and Aaron has been through some serious challenges. You always look at guys that are doing really well, making an impact, have a lot of momentum, and he was one of the guys that I knew right away that he had a background in struggling and going through some adversity. And guess what? We get to hear about it on this episode. Let's roll. We are all going to have to fight. I don't care if it's mentally, physically, or spiritually. We are all going to have to fight for something in our lives. My goal is to help you forge your will to fight, to become the best that you can possibly be for yourself, your family, and everybody else around you. I'm Dom Raso. Welcome to the Will to Fight podcast. All right, guys, what is up? I've got somebody here with me today. I've got the CEO and founder of Redcon1, Aaron Singerman, and watching his journey through everything that he's built now and hearing some of the stories that he's got. I'm excited to share those with you. Aaron has been a huge part of watching our progression with who we decide to partner up with, and I've been looking for a supplement company for a while. So not only found a guy and a brand that speaks our language, that connects to what we do every day, has solid branding and a great message, but everything that he stands for as well, and his story is very inspiring. So I'm pumped to have you on the show, brother.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. A pleasure to be here, and I'm very complimented and flattered that with all the supplement companies out there that you chose us and that we were working together, and I think that speaks a lot because, like you said, you don't just partner with anybody. And neither do I. It's a tough decision to take on a partner and to decide to work with somebody because there's a lot of people out there that you would not want to work with, and that could be a mistake. So you got to choose carefully. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, reputation and who you work with has a long-lasting effect.
Yes.
And,
yes.
When things like this happen, it was like, I found out about Redcon. I always talk about the MRE bars sliding on the floor, the van that we were driving around Baja in. Yeah. But Johnny Primo, guys like Damien, I mean, they're out there making an impact. They've got a great reputation. They're veterans, running a business. And they're like, dude, you've got to link up with these guys. And that's how it started. You know, that's how relationships start.
Yeah.
So it's been an awesome journey. How did you link up with Primo initially?
So initially, Primo reached out to us that he felt like. I mean, first off, he was an awesome guy. I mean, I love the tactical stuff that he does. So he's into fitness, he's into bodybuilding, and he was a fan of bodybuilding. And so he worked out with Johnny Jackson and Branch Warren, which are two pretty famous bodybuilders.
Yep.
And so he was interested in that world, but he was in a whole different world. So when he approached me, he said, "Listen, tactical shooting, this industry is big, and there's a lot of synchronicities with what we're doing and what you're doing. I would like to get involved, and maybe I can bring some of my fan base and his customers to Redcon." And I saw what he was doing, and I thought he was just a cool guy. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And that's really how we got going.
100%. That brand and that attitude, I walked in the exchange, just about every week when I was in the military. And how many guys are walking in and out of GNC looking for that product? They're like, what's the product that's my go-to protein? Yeah. I used to go on Target, and towards the end of my career, I had it down pat where I would shove my face in the chow hall, and then my routine was 2 protein shakes. I had those Haji bottles, which we call Haji canteens, just a regular water bottle like this right here. And I'd put 2 scoops of protein in one of them, and then 3 scoops of protein in the other one. So I'd pound one before I got on the helo, and then right as I got off the helo for infill, I'd pound another one. So I had, hydration and protein in there. So I know that supplements are a big deal for guys, especially when you don't have the opportunity to always eat the right stuff. You guys are just doing some great stuff, and watching how Johnny came across it too.
He is awesome. Yeah. So one of the biggest things for me, that's like an honor is to be sold on all the exchanges, all the bases. We're in all the GNCs on base, but we're also in all the exchanges.
That's so huge.
It means a lot to me. Like I'm really proud to see that when like we last weekend, one of the sales guys, John Riccio, was at Fort Campbell, and to see like hear from him how many guys and girls came up and were like, "Wow, we love the brand. It's so cool you're here." It's really like a really neat thing.
That is, dude. I would much rather have had a total war than a rip it. I can't tell you how many rip its I had overseas. I'm sure a lot of guys can relate to that. Well, you talked about honor, and that's one of the first questions I like to talk about because I think it's super important. You know, Dynamis and my brand and everything is the foundation is honor. So what does honor mean to you?
So honor means a lot. So what you brought up reputation. I think honor and reputation kind of go hand in hand, right? And you know, a lot of people say like, I don't care what people say about me or whatever. I don't believe that. Like I do care what people say. It's funny. My grandfather, when I was much younger and having a lot of problems, you know, he said, "What are people going to remember about you? Like when you're gone?" And he's passed away quite a while ago. And he said, "What are they going to remember? What are people going to say about you? You know, what's your reputation going to be? You know, what are your kids going to think about? What's your legacy? Because it's not going to be good. Like right now, you're not leaving anything good behind. People aren't going to say good things, and that matters." He said, like, "Hey, ultimately, you know, what people think of you and what they say about you makes a huge difference, and you're in charge. That's your responsibility to make sure that you do things the right way, you treat people the right way, and you live your life with honor, because ultimately that will be, you know, your legacy." And so for me, you know, I always try to remind myself that, you know, because it's easy to forget because maybe nobody's seeing you do it, right? Whatever that may be, because you may be by yourself, and it's easy to think like nobody sees or whatever, but I try to live my life where I assume that everybody's going to see whatever I'm doing. So if it's something that I wouldn't want people to see what I'm doing, then I know I shouldn't be doing it, right? And so that's something I remind myself, and I feel like all of that ties into honor and reputation and what people say about you, and to me that's very important. And so like that's Redcon1. If I showed you the brand book, one of the main things that we started the company with is like to be in, you know, to live and with integrity and with honor, and treat the customers the way that you'd want to be treated. All that is part of the initial brand book to start the company.
Awesome. That's huge. I mean, I feel like honor is such a lost art and a lost characteristic and a value today in our culture. So I think that's part of what I was attracted to immediately. I could just tell, you know, there's something different about the brand. And obviously the leader behind the brand is going to make a huge influence and a huge impact on where the brand goes. So just hearing you say that about what are people going to remember about you, you know, and I haven't really heard somebody explain it like that before either. Like, what are people going to think? Because we're kind of in that culture now where people are like, well, I don't care. Don't worry about what the haters think and everybody else. And there's a certain element of that. But when you say you really do care, like what are you connecting and how are you kind of living that out in a way where, say you do get some negative feedback or say somebody does talk shit about you, you know, whether it's online or somewhere else. How do you handle that? How do you process that and kind of put that into action?
I separate it into two pools. So one is people that don't know me and haven't met me. So those are like the internet people, like somebody comes on the internet and be like, says something negative. It doesn't mean anything to me. It's like, it literally, you know, it's like in one ear, out the other. I've been in the media in some fashion for a long time, and I've gotten negative feedback. And then also, as you create more success, there's no doubt that you're going to also get more negativity coming in. And so I definitely have got a lot of that, and then it matters like zero to me. When I'm talking about the people around me in my life, my friends, my family, people that work for me or work with me. Those are the people. And then like for Redcon, specifically the customers. So I want people to know, like when they're giving their trust and their you know limited resources to our thing, that they can be 100% confident that we're living up to our promises. If it says it's on the label, it's in the product, and you know, And I think that's super duper important to me. But in terms of the haters and stuff, I don't listen. It means nothing. So it is important what people think about you and say about you, but it needs to be somebody that knows you. It can't be some anonymous person you've never met.
100%. Yeah, the value of that. So you talk about what goes in the labels, and that goes back to integrity. And like I said, I just can't say enough good things about, the experiences that I know that you've been through already.
Sure.
I know for a fact, I'm not even questioning it because I know that quality means something to you. I know that it means something to you. So the other question I have is, what was one of your biggest goals when you were younger? As a kid and at an early age, what was one of your driving goals that you had?
So at an early age, I got involved in bodybuilding at 13 years old, where I wanted to be a famous bodybuilder. Like I wasn't good at sports. I really didn't play much in terms of organized sports. I don't know if I would have been good if I did more, but I didn't. And I found in bodybuilding at 13 years old, I found something that I could chart my progress. So I'd go to the gym and I would be getting better, even if it was small increments. So I fell in love with bodybuilding, which unfortunately also kind of fell in love with anabolic steroids, because steroids go with bodybuilding. And the fact that at a young age I was willing to take steroids, I feel like allowed me to do a lot of other recreational drugs, and it led me down a really bad path. So the goals that I had as a kid were unrealistic. First off, by nature I'm a tall, skinny Jewish dude. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be the next big bodybuilder. It's just not going to happen. Genetically, it wasn't in the cards. And that goal got lost pretty quick when drugs came into the picture. Only later in life did I really start goal setting and saying, like, making definitive goals. One of the big things that I did in my life when I got off of drugs, when I got sober, was I wrote a list. Me and you talked in the car about visualization. So I'm a real big believer in that. Yeah, so what I did is I wrote a list of things that I wanted to accomplish. That was, some of them were small, like incremental, really small, and then some of them were huge, like have an article in a magazine written about me, own a Ferrari, stand on the Olympia stage, like all these goals, that seemed pie in the sky. And I kept this list with me, and I would look at it several times a day, sometimes many times a day, to remind myself, like, this is what I'm trying to do, these list of goals. And then as I did them, I would check them off. And then, it took about 2 years or so, 3 years, and I checked all of them off. So even the goals that were ridiculous, I was able to get all of these things. And I think that goal setting for me is humongous. We set goals for daily goals, weekly goals, in terms of revenue for the company. We set all kinds of goals for each department head. I'm a big, big believer in that. But as a kid, I was pretty lost, because to say my goal was to be a famous bodybuilder, I don't even know if that's really the case. I just thought it would be cool to have huge muscles.
Well, the visualization piece, and I'm 37. I went through everything that I did, and I have the ability to connect that back. But more and more we're learning. Imagine if we had that and we were able to understand that at an earlier age.
Yeah,
like to manifest what we have in our thoughts.
Yeah.
If somebody actually sat me down or sat you down, it was like everything that you do, exactly what you talked about with the list.
Right.
Like you carried that list in your pocket.
Yeah.
Did you take that thing everywhere and just
Oh my God,
look
it was in my wallet. So I would look at it. I mean, it literally was like worn down. I still have the list. I mean, it's like,
that's awesome.
It's like holding together by threads, because I would bend, I would fold it up, open it up, look at it, fold it back, put it in my wallet, and it came with me everywhere until I checked them all off.
So I think that's a huge gold nugget for people listening, is like the visualization process that you go through. Like if you're not doing that, whether it's saying it to yourself, talking to yourself, or putting it in your pocket and taking it out multiple times a day, every time you pull your wallet out, like, there's my list.
Yep.
Am I doing one little thing each hour, each day to remind myself? That's so huge.
It is a big deal. I do something similar to when I diet. So and my wife thinks I'm crazy for doing this, but when I do a diet, like a transformation, I'm trying to get like super shredded or whatever, because I still do that for marketing occasionally, once a year or whatever, I'll get like super shredded. I weigh myself twice a day. I weigh myself in the morning and then weigh myself at night. And she's like, wow, what's the point in that? So the point to me is that it reminds me that I'm dieting. I'm trying to lose weight. I'm trying to lose weight. So I'm getting on the scale, and it keeps me more accountable, because if I'm thinking about eating a cookie, I got to weigh later. I'm going to eat that cookie. How will that affect the weight? And it seems silly, but to me, it's a reminder that that's the goal.
Well, that's it. Have you heard of triggers before?
Triggers in terms of like
something,
like that makes
stimulus
you,
in your environment
100%.
that triggers you.
Yeah.
Like I talk about triggers all the time
Yeah.
in our combatives training, any type of training, even awareness. But one of my triggers is that if I pick up this blade, right, now I have this blade in my hand, immediately I have all this emotion and technique and awareness that comes into play. Well, I'm starting to think like, well, I've got this blade, and now I've triggered to heighten my sense of awareness.
Of course.
So that trigger, I think, is important, where that's what you did. You created a trigger based off of the scale.
Yeah.
You're like, this scale is my reset button.
Yes.
It's my point in the day where I'm like, am I being accountable to that plan or what I said I was going to do?
Right.
So that's huge. I mean, reminders, visualization, and triggers, they're all real things. And I use them on a daily basis at this point. I have my morning routines, and we always, that's like a thing now. It's like everybody wants to know what people's routines are, especially if you're doing it right and people see the success portion, like, okay, what's this guy got that I'm not doing right? Yeah. And I know a lot of people probably have a hard time getting their ass out of bed. So what are you doing in the mornings? What's your routine look like in the morning?
So I have I am by nature extremely obsessive person, like to a degree where that's probably like right there at an unhealthy level. So I have this in myself, and I'm aware of it. And people that are close to me also know, because they see it kind of come out. Like people who work for me, you talk to Eduardo. I don't have any kind of limits, so I don't really stop working at any point in time. What's helped me tremendously to be a normal person is having 3 little boys and having a wife. So it starts off in the morning. I wake up, usually the kids will jump on me or whatever, so there's no real option to sleep in at all. So let's say I wake up at, like this morning, I wake up at 6:30 or so, come down here, and I spend time with the kids in the living room, and we'll hang out. I'll have my MRE Light protein shake with peanut butter, and I have a bagel, and we sit around and hang out. And then I go upstairs and do 30 minutes of cardio, which we did together the other day, and steady state cardio. And I really don't leave the house until the kids are gone. So that's kind of like my commitment to family, because the kids leave around 8:30, 9 o'clock. And depending on the day, right now it's a little later, like 9 o'clock because of camp, but normal it's school. So I stay whenever the kids leave, I'll go shower up and get ready and go to work. Also, you've seen at my work at the office, I have a lot of younger people, and I allow them to come in at 10. So there's not a lot of point of me getting to the office at 8 or whatever, because most of the people don't get there till 10. They get there at 10, and people leave at like 7 or so, so they have a later schedule, because that's what people like these days. Cool. Give that flexibility. So I work from whatever, let's say 9:30 to 6 or so. Go to the gym, the trainer space right by the office, and I don't leave for lunch or anything. So I'm there the whole time, and work out for an hour, and I get home as close to 7 o'clock as possible, so I can spend time with the kids before they go to bed. The kids go to bed at exactly 8 o'clock. We don't have any leeway. So it's 8 o'clock to go to bed.
I need to start doing that.
So there's no, we've set some hard, fast rules with kids.
That's good, though. You need that.
Because I saw a lot of friends of mine that, the kids would be up till midnight. And I also saw a lot of kids sleep in the parents' beds. One of my good buddies, his 9-year-old or 10-year-old daughter still sleeps in the bed every night with them. No way. So anyway,
I mean it's the same thing. I'm dealing with some of the same issues.
I don't do it.
We try to create good habits, but one thing you said was in the mornings you spend time with your kids. Yeah. Well, we homeschool. Do you ever have days where they're home and like I have a hard time leaving? Yeah. It's like I got 4 kids running around. I'm like I don't even want to leave the house because it's just awesome to hang out.
Yeah. For me, because they're not homeschooled, right? They're gone, so I don't really have that. And also, I love my job. I love work. I absolutely love it, and I do look forward to work every day. So getting there and accomplishing the goals we're set out is an obsession for me. And if it weren't for the kids, I would probably live at the office. And that's not an exaggeration.
No, I'm with you.
Because I really love it. I do love it. So when they leave, it gives me an opportunity to go to work. I'm excited to do that. I'm excited for work every day. When I finish training, I come home. I put the kids to bed. I'll sometimes we'll split. So I'll do Elijah. I'll put to bed the youngest one, or I'll put the 2 boys to bed. The older ones, they sleep together now. So I'll read them a book or whatever, brush teeth, and I get ready, and then me and her spend time together. every night until she goes to bed, and then I'll do some other work. And I try to get to bed before midnight. It doesn't always work, but so I do my emails and stuff and phone calls because we have a lot of international business. And then every night when I go to bed, I read. So I read a book. So that's my. People take medicine to go to sleep. People take fade out, which is huge from us. But I don't need to take anything because I read until the phone. I read it on my phone. The phone hits me in the face, and that's my message to go to sleep.
That's your trigger.
That's it. It hits me, and I'm like, oh, I should go to bed.
Yeah, that's awesome. And as far as with the kids, I know you've got 3 boys, which for me, I got 4, so it's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
There's different dynamics, but I love the fact that you put the hard time on there. I think a lot of people don't do that. We're getting better about it. We usually like 8:30.
Yeah.
But that time with your wife is huge.
Very important.
Because with the kids now, there'll be some weeks where we don't even get to see each other.
Yeah.
So do you find that helps you build your relationship?
It does, and we also set times to one of the things that I have found is that we need to go away. Even if it's me and her will go to a hotel. We went to in Palm Beach, which is 30 minutes from here. We stayed at the Breakers a few weeks ago, and we took a night, and we had her mom stay over or the babysitter stay over, and went and just had a night like that. I feel like that's very important for us.
100%.
Because people don't do that, and you even hear people saying oh, that's selfish, but in reality, that's good for your kids because people don't stay together, people get divorced all the time. And I think a lot of that happens because whatever the spark that brought you together is totally gone because your roommate's raising the kids and you got to keep that there somehow. And
you've got to be intentional about it.
Yeah.
And we're, my wife and I have been married for 11 years at this point.
Yeah.
And you have to be intentional.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that spark. So I want to talk more about you being a father because I think that's important. For me, it's important. I'm sure I can learn something from every father out there, especially from your busy life. And you have an obsession with work, and I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I love being there, and I'll stay till midnight all night.
Yeah.
Sometimes I got to get the phone call, are you coming home
Yeah,
or
I get
what?
that.
Yeah. But I want to get into your will to fight story.
Yeah.
So I want you to go into exactly what you had to fight through to get where you are today and some of the biggest challenges you had to face and what you learned along your journey.
So my life has been a series of very big ups and very big downs, very, very big in either direction. And a lot has happened in a short period of time. Because, I'm 39, but a majority of the really busy times have been in the last 7, 8, 10 years or so. And before that, it was a lot of down. Now, obviously, there's been that's how life is, right? You have to be aware, no matter how good things are going, it's going to get bad, and no matter how bad it's going to get better.
100%.
And this is life. It's part of everybody's life. So no matter how good you think somebody's doing, they're not going to be doing good like that forever. And then hopefully they'll be doing good again in the future. You know what I mean? That's just how life goes. So for me, I mentioned at 13, I started bodybuilding. At 17, I started taking anabolic steroids. And
That's young, man.
Yeah. So I started very early doing that because I wanted to be a bodybuilder. And I thought, that this is the route that I needed to take. And that led me to taking a drug called Nuban, which was a popular, it's a narcotic antagonist, actually. But it was a popular drug with bodybuilders in the 90s. It was an injectable painkiller. Because if you're willing to inject steroids at a young age, what's the difference between injecting a painkiller? And so I would do it in the muscle or subcutaneous. And eventually I did it in the vein. And that kind of led me to later on, I had a few pretty decent years. I never finished high school. I got in some legal trouble as a teenager. And I never finished high school. Actually, it's interesting. I had an opportunity in front of a judge. I had all these criminal charges. And the judge said, you can either go to intensive rehab for this period of time, or I could go into the military. And I was like, rehab, send me to rehab. And it's funny because I look back and I think it would be interesting to see where I would have, because I could have taken that obsession potentially and put it into that, because now that really appeals to me. But then you think I wouldn't be here doing any of this stuff. So it's for me, I'm so happy with where my life is now. All the things I'm going to talk about now, I wouldn't change any of it. I wouldn't change one thing because I've been around a lot of bad stuff and bad people, and I've had the I've been around death and people dying and violence and stuff, and I wouldn't take back any of it because I wouldn't be here today. If you remove those things, you're not in the same place. So anyway, I at the time OxyContin was really big, and I got addicted to OxyContin. I would go to doctors and get prescription pills, and you crush them up and inject them. And so around that period of time, I was living in Baton Rouge. The idea was to go there for college, but I was a personal trainer instead, and got addicted to OxyContin. Moved back to New Orleans, and I was back. That's where I'm from, New Orleans, Louisiana. And I was living there, and in 2005, I was 25 years old. And in August, there was a hurricane, and the Mira Ray Nagin came on and said, "This is the worst hurricane. This is the doomsday scenario. If you have a car," because I've been through so many hurricanes, I don't give a shit. And I was like, "Big deal, you know." He's like, "If you have a car, you need to leave immediately, or you could die." And I was like, "Whoa, that's different than I've never heard that one before." And so I waited till the last minute. But I was smart enough, thankfully, to fill up the car with gas and put another thing of gas in the car. And I drove. It took me 24 hours to drive to Houston. That was Hurricane Katrina. And so when I came back, I was able to get a pass from the governor because my dad owned businesses. So the idea was I could go back to check on his businesses for him, and everything was gone. All of my possessions were gone. All of my family's, the house was gone. Everything was gone. Wow. So I ended up moving to Houston. When I got to Houston, I realized, oh shit, like I can't get any more OxyContin. So I ended up switching from OxyContin to heroin, and I would go into, it's called Yellowstone is the name of the street, and it's like a neighborhood, a really bad neighborhood in Houston, like literally the ghetto. And every day I would go there, every day to buy heroin, because I didn't have the ability to save up, and like buy enough for a week. So it would be every day I would go and buy two bags would be $40, up to $80 if I was able to scrounge up $80, And I was doing whatever I needed to do. Fortunately, I didn't hurt anybody during this period of time, and I didn't do anything to myself that I would regret. But I would sell drugs. I would do anything I could do to get that $40 so I wouldn't be sick. And every day I would go to the ghetto and visit this drug dealer in this house that he was squatting in until I was there one day and he got in an argument with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend killed him in front of me, stabbed him in front of me from the back. We were talking, and she came from behind him and stabbed him.
Holy shit.
And I didn't know that he died. I just knew that it was like really bad, and that it was like it scared the shit out of me. And so he fell over, and she ran off. And I ran off, and to show you how fucked up I was, the next day I was kicking myself because he had dropped all the bags of heroin when he fell, and I was like, man, I could have got all those bags, because the next day I went back there because I was so sick and I didn't know where else to go, and I went back there and I was just standing outside the house being like, this one dude standing out there like looking like I was lost, waiting for somebody to come by, and anybody would come by and be like, hey, do you have any heroin? And they'd be like, what the fuck what are you doing here, And this period of time was, interestingly enough, his boss, this guy, Robert, came by and said, what are you doing? And I said, I was waiting for Red. And he's like, oh, and he drove off, and he came back around. He's like, what are you still doing here? And I was like, I'm waiting for Ed. And he's like, what do you need? And I filled 2 bags. And I ended up buying drugs from his boss from that point forward, and not having to go into the ghetto anymore, because he had like a normal, nice house. But during this period of time, I lived in a FEMA apartment, for refugees. They give it to you for free. And I didn't have they don't give you electricity for free. So I didn't have any electricity, and I lived in this FEMA apartment in a terrible neighborhood. I was the only white dude in the whole area, and lived with no electricity, with bugs everywhere in the apartment. I mean, slept on the ground in the apartment. My parents were my mom and my dad. My dad's passed away, but my mom and my dad were great. They did what most parents wouldn't be able to do. They provided me with enough to survive. They always gave me protein powder, peanut butter and jelly, but they didn't give me too much where I could abuse the situation, because I would have for sure. Even when they did in the past, like my dad would give me a gas card, I would go wait outside the gas station and try to buy people gas to give for, like, hey, Dom, you're putting gas in your car? If you give me $40, I'll put $60 of gas in your car.
Cash.
Yeah, to get cash. So I had abused their generosity plenty of times, but they never abandoned me completely, which is a huge thing. Because if they would have, I don't know what would have happened. It would have been really bad because they always kept the roof over my head. They always had a gym membership. They always bought me a gym membership. So like, I had nothing to do with myself. I go to the gym. Even when I was on heroin, I was still working out, you know? So like that definitely helped because most parents, you know, they say tough love. It's like, cut them off. I wouldn't have, sink or swim. I would have sank for sure. I would have.
That's huge.
Yeah, they did. They definitely kept me.
I'm sure there's
above
some people
water.
that need to hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's huge.
Well, I've certainly paid it back now. I do everything I can for my folks, and you know, it's been one of the most exciting things in my life was to do nice things for my family. And my dad was not a man who I don't know. I wouldn't say that he wasn't somebody who liked nice stuff, but he never would buy nice stuff. You know, he would never buy anything nice for himself. He's just not like I wouldn't say he. So the story goes that I bought him a Mercedes, and when he came to Boca, it was like there, and I was like, I have this all on video. I was like, this is for you, and he's like, what? You know, and it was like he was so blown away and shocked he thought it's like a joke, you know, and it was such a great, awesome thing. So he loved the Mercedes, he loved it. But he would never in a million years buy a Mercedes. It wouldn't even enter his mind to do something like that. So it's been really great to do all kinds of nice stuff for my folks.
That's awesome.
And you know, we talked before, me and you, before we were in the car about things that really matter. Like that matters to me. That is valuable. Giving it to him, giving things to people that you care about is much more. You know, I always heard that. I'm like, well, it doesn't make any sense. But giving is much more gratifying than to buy something for yourself. 100%. You buy your kids something that they love. It's much bigger deal to me to do that and see that joy from them than to get myself something that I think is cool. You know, it's definitely.
It's nice. It's like gratifying to see that in somebody else.
100%. 100%. So I had a lot of bad experiences with drugs, and you know, the tipping point for me was I had met this girl, Jennifer, who we started dating. And the relationship basically was about doing drugs together. That was the thing. We met on a dating website, which was so crazy that we're both on a dating website. And we met and we hit it off because she was a cocaine dealer. And her boyfriend was a huge cocaine dealer. He was killed in a shot in some sort of exchange. And so she didn't know what to do with herself. Like she didn't know what her next move was. So what she did was she continued to buy the cocaine from his connection. So she would buy, you know, literally kilos of cocaine and became almost like a little kingpin because all the dudes, all the big players in Houston loved to deal with her because she was not intimidating. She's a tiny, tiny little white girl, less than 100 pounds. So they all loved her. So they thought there's no risk because there's always, if you're going to do a big drug deal with, you know, 50, 60, 70,000 bucks, you could die. And people did. Her boyfriend died literally doing that. So she was very popular. And when they would come to her apartment, I would have to leave. So they didn't want to see me. And so anyway, she sold a lot of cocaine, and I got all the cocaine I could have for free. So we would inject cocaine all day long. And I ended up actually stopping doing heroin because I was doing so much cocaine. And me and her hung out, and that was probably my worst period in terms of I lost a lot of weight. I was 180 pounds. So I'm like 235, 240 now. So 180, it didn't look good. I wasn't working out. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't doing the normal things like brushing your teeth and taking showers. I was like a mess. I went for days without drinking water. You know, it was like a really crazy time. And we had a friend over, her and I, who was a friend. He bought drugs from her, but he is more of a friend. And we were sitting there on the couch, me and him, and I went into the room with her for something. And when we came out, he was dead. And he had died of an overdose, and it was very stark because here's my friend, literally 1 minute alive, next minute dead, and we had apparently been gone out of the room long enough for him to start to, you know, go rigor mortis, right?
Yeah.
And he had shit himself, right? And he smelled terrible, and I was like, I can't believe that this just happened. And so she started saying, you need to move the body. You need to move him out of here. Get him, put him in his truck and drive him down the road. And I'm like, I was like, no. I was like, right now, this is an accident. I'm not moving his body. And so she started freaking out and screaming at me. I'm like, you're a fucking coward. You're a pussy. And I'm like, I read like, detective novels. You don't move the body. You can't touch the body. She's like, fuck you. And so she started punching me in the face. And so she's like hitting me, this tiny little girl. And for some reason, I don't know what, because I saw so much other bad stuff and did bad stuff. Something about this moment was like, literally, a light went off and I was like, I'm going to die. Like, I'm going to die. Something bad is going to happen to me. Like, this is such a crazy situation. Here, my friend is dead. He's shit himself. This little tiny girl is screaming at me and hitting me, telling me, move the body, move the body. We're all on drugs. There's drugs all over the place. And so I literally stopped everything. Like, I had this moment of clarity, and I literally turned around and ran out of the door. And I got in my car, went back to my apartment, locked the door, and didn't answer her calls anymore. And from that point forward, I got sober. That was a little bit of a process because I was on methadone, so I had to wean myself off. But literally from that day to now, I have never done any of these drugs again. I've never injected myself or anything like that with anything. It was such a moment of clarity that all the time, because I've been to rehabs and stuff like that before, none of that did anything for me. No meetings did anything for me. But for some reason, that particular incident was a turning point where everything from that point changed. And it literally changed 100% completely in a different direction. And from that point in my life, everything has been going up from that moment. Now I've had, of course, like everybody, I've had moments of downs, but that was a big, big monumental moment in my life. I can look back at it and I can remember how I felt. Like I can remember the emotion of the moment, you know? So that is one of the moments of the fight, and I've had a bunch of other ones since then with some crazy shit.
That is gnarly, man.
Yeah.
You know, and you think about being at a low, you know, I've known people, I've even been through things myself, and I'm sure there's people listening that have been through these situations or are going through these situations. And what can you nail down specifically? Because I think the moment that you had that clarity, because it was cold turkey. I mean, that's it. I'm done. I'm moving forward. So I think that's the moment that I want to dive into a little bit and kind of talk about. You felt like you were going to die. Something came over you in that moment. Do you remember exactly what it was that went into your psyche to be like, this is it. This is why I'm going to stop completely.
You know what? It's because I know you've experienced different stuff, but similar in the sense like when you're up close to death, right? And you see death up close like that. And like I said, with Red, and I've seen some violent stuff, seeing Red get stabbed and stuff. I didn't really have any affinity to him. You know, I didn't really care. I mean, I felt bad that he died. I felt scared when it happened, but I didn't really, didn't internalize it. But when this kid died, when this friend died, and I saw it, and it felt like, I guess it felt two things. It felt like it reinforced how permanent that is, that it's done, right? This kid's done. He was there, now he's gone. And then it also, so like the fragility of life, like, dude, this can be over, and here it is being over. And then also, like, the fact that this just happened, and it can happen to me. It can happen to anybody, It wasn't like, there was nothing grand about this. Like, kid did the same thing I do every day, and then he died. So I think that seeing that and internalizing the fact that, like, hey, not only are you going to die, like, you're going to die, like, for sure. Now, I knew, of course, internally I'm going to die, but now after seeing it, like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to die. And then it was also the fact that it's like, well, I could be dead anytime. Like, I don't have any guaranteed time left. Like, here he is, and there he's gone. And so for me, I know that really struck me, because when I was in the apartment laying in the bed, I was thinking about, like, over and over again in my head, like this kid's gone. So his family, he has a kid. It's like, it's over for him. It's over for them. What's, what happens next? And obviously nothing happens next for him, right? Or whatever the next place is, that's where he's at, right? And I don't know what that means. So it was a lot of the reality of seeing that and knowing, like, hey, this is something that is not only coming for you, but it's something that can happen at any time. Nothing is guaranteed. Because I guarantee you one thing, that when he came to that apartment, he didn't know he was going to die there. He had no idea. There was no signs of it. He was totally normal. Every other time I've met him, he seemed the same, and then he was dead.
Man, when it's your friend, like, having the ability to be like, you were lock and step with him in that moment.
Yeah.
So it's like, could have been you.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that moment. And I think a lot of times with people, you see people going down a path, and now you have the experience to be able to look at people and be like, dude, you're not going down the right path.
Right.
Like, you can see it.
Yeah.
I can see people doing little things on a daily basis. I'm like, dude, in 5 years, if you keep doing this, you're not going to end up in a good place.
Right.
But it's not impactful enough. It's not strong enough to punch them in the face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're doing these things that are kind of mediocre. They're maintaining, and then it has to be personal. Like I was telling you before, I did a litmus test. I did a survey. Like, what's it going to take for you to actually take personal accountability? And it has to be personal. And it's like, damn it, I want people to take accountability and have integrity for these moments before that happens.
Right.
So it doesn't end up where it's too late in a situation like that. So obviously after that moment, and you moved through that moment, getting to the point where you knew you were going to have to go through all the withdrawals and everything. I mean, you cold turkeyed it. So what did you hold on to in that moment to get you through the clear, to get you completely out? I'm sure that was a process where there was a lot of stuff going on in your head. What was that like?
Yeah, I am somebody, like I said, that obsession was also that I have now that drives me in a positive way, was the exact same stuff that was there then, right? So I kind of channeled that same obsession that gets me to do stuff that other people won't, to stop taking drugs. So I literally took the option of doing drugs away. There was no option. It's not there. I couldn't do drugs. I just couldn't. There was no way I was going to do them. I wasn't going to slip back, and I wouldn't do it. So like a lot of times, this is how people work. If you're a drug addict, there's this thing inside every drug addict that tells them that they could do it again a little bit. So that's the thing. It's like, this is the problem, is that most drug addicts, or every drug addict, I think, honestly, that relapses, that goes back, is because they think in their head, I could probably do it again. Maybe not now, but for a special occasion, I could do it a little bit. Or see, there's all variety, right? So like you see, I can have a drink of vodka, no problem. If you told me I'm addicted to drugs, I'm getting off, is it okay to drink vodka? The answer is absolutely not, right? Because everybody is different. So when somebody asks me, the answer is not, no. But for me, I have these things like that I know I will never do. So sticking a needle in me will never, ever happen. And when I decided to stop, it was just, there was nothing that was going to make me keep going. And yeah, I was sick for a long time because I had been taking methadone. So when I stopped taking methadone, it's in every cell of your body. So it takes a good month to not be sick. And then it takes a good another 3 or 4 weeks to feel normal after that. So imagine the worst flu you've ever had for a month. And like you're shitting your brains out. You feel terrible. You're depressed. It gives you all these, because all of your neurotransmitters are not working right. Like your body is freaking out. And it was terrible. It was a terrible, terrible thing. But for me, it only reinforced how much I needed to not be doing this stuff. As sick as I was, I connected that sickness to like, obviously this is not good for you. Like I am killing myself. I need to not do it again to have this over with, because that means that it's no longer inside of me. So it was terrible. I was very lucky to find a girl other than Jennifer that supported this at the time. It ended up being a really bad relationship later on, but she really wanted to save me. She wanted to like participate in helping me. And then when I didn't need help anymore, the relationship kind of deteriorated. But she was a really important part. I also quit smoking cigarettes at then. So I quit everything. So I literally stopped everything I was doing, which is so crazy to think I smoke cigarettes now. So she really was an integral part in me stopping, because she was super supportive, financially supportive too. She paid the bills for the 8 weeks I couldn't really work. And that was one of the big things. A lot of, people who are on drugs, that like opiates like that, if you stop, you're going to be not able to work for a little while. It's just not there's bad. No way that I could have went to a job and done anything for that first month for sure. So
you went through that process, and obviously there was a level of conviction there that was just like, that's it. And I told you, even when I was going through Buds, I took the option to quit away from myself. Yeah. And I don't know what it is, and I'm still trying to dial that in, but you take away the option, you're like, it doesn't matter, I'll break a leg, I'll die before this happens. And you reach that level of conviction in this moment. So for the guys that are out there that might be listening to this, that are kind of like, oh, I could do it again, or I could leave that door open, what would you say to those guys? And then what would you give them as a tool to be able to avoid that?
So first off, you need to be honest with yourself, and you need to be honest in the fact that you do think from time to time, or maybe all the time, about the possibility of one day doing it again on some level, right? Because that's the thing. It's like a lot of people would tell you, no, I don't think about that. But most, and I would dare to say 99% of the people think, maybe at my brother's wedding, I can have a few drinks at the wedding, right? He's not been married for years, but at that wedding, and that thing, that possibility, that there is a possibility, the chance that it could happen, and you could do it and be like a normal person. I could have a drink and just be like a normal person, or I could smoke a little crack and I'll be okay. That possibility, even if you're saying in 20 years, and I've been sober 20 years, that possibility, that leaving that door open can cause you to relapse and do drugs tomorrow. So that it doesn't matter. Like you can't say, in 20 years, because then that 20 years, all of a sudden you're gonna have a really bad day. Something terrible is gonna happen in your life. You're gonna say, man, fuck 20 years. I'm gonna do it today. I mean, I was gonna do it anyway in 20 years. So my first step, what I would tell people is to be honest if you're thinking about those things. And then you need to, first off, I would probably, if it were me and I was feeling like that, I would tell people and talk to somebody. Find somebody. That's the one part of the whole AA thing that I like. I like the idea that there's a sponsor, somebody that you can report to and talk to about it, and tell them like that you think that there's a chance you could do it, and there needs to be some way to internalize the fact that there isn't a chance and that you'll never be able to do it. And once you really believe that, once you've made the real decision, so I talk about this a lot. I don't think in life people really make decisions. It's very difficult for most people to make a definitive decision where it's yes or no. It's black or white. It's a binary thing. There's no other, it's one or the other. Because people, there's all this levels of in between of saying, I don't know if I'm gonna. So like when I do, like I talked about the transformation of diet, I do it. There's no I don't like we had dessert last night. I would never even consider, it's not even a thing that happens. But most people, that's a real difficult thing. So I think that the number one thing is talk to somebody, be honest with yourself, and then you need to figure out a way to change your own mind, whether it's journaling or talking to people or writing down or every day having something on your phone saying, that it's not an option. And at some point, you build habits, and a habit becomes your reality. Just like I do cardio every morning or you train it's not something hard for me to do. It's part of what I do. It is what it is. It's the same thing with being honest, living with integrity, honor. Even if you don't have it, you can pretend. And if you pretend long enough, then you're going to have it. And it's all about habits. For me, I'm a big believer in that, and fake it till you make it is totally good, because eventually that will be you. So, I don't like the idea of fake it, but that is
like, that's the connotation.
Yeah, it's negative, right? But the truth is that if you start acting some way, whatever you want to be, you start acting that way, eventually that's going to be you. You'll have built yourself into it. So you need to form the habit of saying to yourself, internalizing the fact that it'll never ever happen again. You can't have it happen. It's not an option. Yeah, you'll never be able to do it.
So there's so much going on in that moment of creating those new neural pathways, of convincing yourself that it isn't an option. You doing it again it wasn't an option. You took it off the table. Me going through buds to quit wasn't an option. I took it off the table. But I think that people, when they start looking at it like, what are the tools that I can use to combat that? If you start hearing your thoughts, because you're like, fake it till you make it, right? We both know that that sucks, but the point is that it all starts with the way your mind works in order to manifest it out. We were talking about Kai Green. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like his life was full of, I am just going to visualize myself being right here. So you have to powerfully visualize your ability to combat whatever it is or to become whatever it is that you want to do. Mm-hmm. But what happens is you get these little voices inside your head that you're like, okay, I'm going to commit to this. That's it. I'm done. Yeah. Then all of a sudden, these little habits and these neural pathways that have already existed for how many years have you been doing it? Yeah. That say, well, that's not really you. Right. You're not really going to be able to accomplish that. And that's where the battle starts. Yeah. And you have to make the conscious decision to be intentional about no, whether you're even having the conversation yourself in your head saying, that is going to be me. Yeah. You have to combat it every time it comes into your head and replace it with a good thought.
So I'll give you a good example of something I do, and a lot of people who watch the IG Live stuff that I do will know this, is that every day, and I did it to myself for a long time, but now I do it when I'm on IG Live. So when I'm ending, I say, today is going to be the best day ever. And I say that. I used to say it. I still do. I say it to myself every morning when I wake up and I look and brush my teeth. I say, today's going to be the best day ever. And I say it out loud. And it's kind of like, I know, like, it could be looked at as cheesy, right? But it helps me because, like you said, by saying, you're feeling bad, make yourself smile. By making yourself smile, you have now changed some way. There's been a change. So for me, I say today is going to be the best day ever. And it usually is.
Which is the truth.
No.
I mean, even a statement like that gets me excited.
Yeah.
Because I get fired up. I mean, I'm excited for tomorrow. Right?
Yeah.
Last night, I knew we were working out this morning.
Yeah.
I couldn't go to sleep. I was literally that excited. I was like, I didn't want to go to bed.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I'm starting to visualize the morning. I'm like, wow, this workout's going to be awesome. We're going to crush these podcasts. Yeah. So there's a level of that emotion that you're able to manifest in your mind, which brings it to your life. And I think that that's so important. We hear people saying it over and over again, and then just your story is telling you the same thing. No matter what you've been through, no matter how freaking hard it's been, you can manifest yourself to the point where, boom, here you are, Aaron Singerman, crushing everything right now. Redcon is killing it. Yeah. Your beautiful family and amazing stuff that you've accomplished. So that journey, and like we said, people only see the tip of the iceberg. Right. They don't know the battles. They don't know the struggle. They don't know what's happened. So it's been really awesome to hear you talk about that and kind of explain that a lot. 3 boys.
Yes.
Right? I always think that I'd be losing my mind if I didn't have a girl at this point. I'm pretty sure it was my mom that was like, here you go, here's a daughter so you can calm down and realize the innocence of the world. But you have 3 boys, so talk to me about your boys.
Yeah, so I have Elijah is the youngest. He's 22 months, almost 2 years old. And then in the middle is Aiden, who's 3, and then Asher is 6. So they're all very I know the kids, it's amazing how different they are. They come from the same gene pool. But, Elijah is like at his age, he's been the easiest one in terms of like, he can like take in some sort of logic. So like Asher was a maniac at almost 2. He was just running around like a chicken with his head cut off. Aiden is like, he still is extremely stubborn. He's like the fighter. He's the bruiser. Everybody loves Aiden because he's such like he doesn't give a shit. Asher was born without the shyness gene. So like he can like go and I was always amazed because as a kid I would never go in front of a group of adults and go and introduce myself or walk around and, sing and dance. He'll sing and dance. You can tell him, hey, do some dancing and do it. He just doesn't have that. Aiden has that to some degree. I mean, you see, he came up to you. You're a Navy SEAL? Yeah. What are you doing here? What's your name? Yeah.
He's like, why? Yeah. Why are you a Navy SEAL?
Yeah, literally. I
was like, well, I had to hunt bad guys. I was like, he was wearing a Batman shirt. I was like, like Batman.
Like Batman. That was a good analogy. I think he liked that. But like, so he's got some of the same thing as Asher, but he doesn't care. So he has this interesting thing where like Asher wants to be friends with everybody. He wants everybody to like him. Aiden doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care. So Aiden he'll play on the playground with the kids. He's friendly with the kids, but if they don't like him, he doesn't care. And on the flip side, he is the one that says no. He'll say, Aiden, you can't have snacks. No. Like, and he doesn't respond. I could spank Asher for something, which is very rare. Spank him, and he'll be hysterical. You spank Aiden, and he gets angry. Yeah, he'll shake and get angry because he'll get if you spank him.
I've got that from my boy, too.
Yeah, it's like, interesting, right? And so they're an interesting mix. And, people ask, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, too, is people ask, their big questions in life, like, what's the purpose of life? Like, how do you stay happy? Like, what's happiness? And I feel like I have the answers to those questions. And I think
I'm sure a lot of people want to hear it.
Yeah, I think the purpose of life is to have children. I honestly believe that. I think that having children is the best thing you can do, and it's the best thing for you. It's the best blessing. It's the most important thing. It makes you appreciate life. And then happiness. Happiness is progress. That's when people say, how do you? Because I'm a very happy person. And I think the reason why I am so happy is because I'm always chasing progress. So you could be, let's say, I'm using fitness, you could be super fat, but ask a super fat person who's losing weight every week, they're feeling pretty good. They're happy because they're making progress.
Yep.
A person that is not able to lose weight or is gaining weight or making no progress, unhappy. And I believe that is every part of life. If you are chasing progress and you're moving forward in some way, and you're focusing on continuing to move forward, I think that is what, honestly, I think that's what makes people happy. You know, if you look at a star in Hollywood who has $100 million and is depressed, probably because he's not making any progress. He doesn't feel like he's moving forward in any way.
I always talk about, it's been a big example for me, but Robin Williams, you know, Robin Williams committed suicide. And it's kind of like wrapping your head around
weird,
that.
right?
You know, how many of us have interacted with what Robin Williams brought to the table? How many times have I laughed my ass off? And then here's this guy, which supposedly is super happy, loves what he does, and there was something missing from his life. And that always drives me to be like, what was it? What was it that he was missing that he didn't figure out in time in order to continue to make that type of an impact? So
let's come back and do
I want to talk more about your lessons learned as a father too, because I think that's huge. Even for me, I want to hear it. You know, selfishly, I want to hear what you have to say, because
I got some good stuff with that too.
There's a lot that we learn being fathers. There's no book written for your life and how you've experienced things. So we'll take a quick break and then we'll come back and we'll talk about that. All right, guys, we're back. We took a short break and we were talking about a lot of different dynamics. We got into the family aspect, but I'm going to kind of hit the reset button, because one thing I think that's important for these guys is to understand through that journey, here you are at Redcon1, right? Yes. Badass brand. Love everything you guys are doing. So how did Redcon1 get their start?
Yeah, so Redcon1 was the culmination of all of my experience in the supplement field. So I made a lot of mistakes along the way, as everybody does in business. And I also had a lot of successes. Well, I mean, it is, right? Everybody does, and especially an entrepreneur like me and you who don't, I mean, I didn't go to business school or anything, so I didn't have that background. Now, I figured stuff out pretty quick, but along the way I made some mistakes. And then also, you know, I had some really big successes. So we were really honest. Me and Eric Hart and Eduardo sat down, and they came along from the past company, and we really were honest about the things that I wanted to change. I knew I could do better. And I was also, we were able to scale the successes up a lot and push them super hard. But it really comes back to my past business was called Blackstone Labs. And I have had several other successful supplement companies, but that was the real foundation. That company was the 27th fastest growing privately owned company from the Inc. 500. So we were doing really great. And when I left, it was actually kind of at the peak of doing really good. You know, we were doing $20 million in sales, just two gym dudes who were best friends. You know, that seemed like everything was going really good, but internally we changed dramatically as people. So like when me and him met and we were best buddies, right? We were partying and, you know, girls and like having fun. It was like a much different relationship as I got married and had a baby and a second baby, a third baby.
This is sounding really familiar.
Yeah, you've had the same thing, huh? So, but he stayed the same, right? He stayed the same, and except he had success, and success can change people for a positive way. It can change people for a negative way. And for me, I believe it's been positive, very positive, because I've learned about myself. I've been able to help people. I've been able to help my family and do all kinds of good things, I think. And so for him, I don't know. I think that the changes were negative in a lot of ways. And as friends, we certainly diverged. You know, you had one guy who was the same as before, except maybe a little more, you know, ego and other stuff that came into play. And then for me, you know, I had a whole different focus. And so the marketing and the branding and everything kind of felt wrong, you know? And so little fights that me and him would have became really big fights. So stuff that would be like something where if it was like me and you and we had an argument, no big deal, right? But that little argument became big arguments and just physical fights, and like where it was like a huge deal, and really towards the end, everything was a fight. Any little thing.
That sucks.
Yeah. And so something small, a guy that we agreed to fire, is actually a really nice dude. He just had a lot of negative energy, and he was going to move to Boca with his family, and I didn't want to work with him, not because I didn't like him, but because I knew he'd be a caustic, you know, force in the company and in Blackstone. So I told PJ, like, I got to fire this guy. Like, I know you like him, I like him, but I can't have him move his family on here because I know I'm going to end up firing him eventually. He's going to be mad, but ultimately this is the best thing for him too, because I'm going to fire him. I know I couldn't handle having that kind of negativity around me all the time. And he's like, oh, I really like him. Okay, if you got to do it, you got to do it. And I fired him, and he called PJ. First off, he cursed me out and like freaked out. And I deleted it. We turned off all his accounts preemptively, and so everybody in the office knew. And then he called PJ crying, literally, being upset, and he doesn't know how to feed his kid, all this stuff, a lot of emotional. So PJ told him, "I'm bringing you back. You're good. Don't worry about it." And he called me and said, "I decided to bring him back." And I'm like, "Bro, there's no bringing him back. He cursed me out. Everybody knows that we fired him. We changed his passwords. If he was going to be a problem before, how do you think he's going to be now? Because I'm going to have to work with him. I'll be directly dealing with the guy every day. And I already didn't want to do that. And that became a huge blow-up fight where he I'm putting my foot down. I'm bringing him back. He's, you're an asshole. And it became a huge fight. And we ended up having a big enough fight that it became a partnership dispute. So essentially that was, unfortunately, I spent the last trip with my family. My dad passed away. He was very sick at the time. So I brought my whole family to Puerto Rico on this big trip. And that was the last trip, and I spent the whole trip arguing with PJ and talking to lawyers and craziness. So I really regret that part. But so this story is a very bad story, but it's funny because it led to Redcon1 and something really bad. This whole thing that I'm in the process of telling you, right, was so bad and so dramatic and everything, but and scary for my family, scary for Darielle, and it ended up being the best thing ever. And we'll talk about that more in a second. But I went back to Boca, and my intention was to try to buy him out or figure something out with this other. We had another partner who was kind of a silent partner, no voting rights. And I thought I was going to be buying his shares and then basically telling PJ, you're still part of the company. You're just no longer making any decisions. I don't want to have any arguments. You can still stay here and everything, but right now I'm the boss, and we work together, and boom, right? So when I went back to work that next work day, I came into the office, and the silent partner and a few of his friends were in the office with PJ. I walked in, and they're like, "Get your shit and get the fuck out. You're fired." I was like, "What?" And my first thought was that I had the big Apple screen was to take it and throw it at them. That was my that was the impulse. And I stopped myself, and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna freak out, because there's a bunch of dudes in here. Maybe they thought I was gonna freak out, maybe I don't know. But the first impulse was get crazy, and I said, okay, be professional. This is gonna be on the record. They could be videoing this or whatever. So I was like, okay, and I walked outside, and I called to my lawyer, a guy named Jonathan Bloom, and he goes, "Aaron, you have 50% of voting rights. They can't fire you." He's like, "The other guy has 0 voting rights." And I was like, okay. And he's like, "Just go home, have a drink, relax." He's like, "Go back to work tomorrow like it didn't happen." He's like, "You're going to have to figure this out, or there'll be a splitting up of the company and breaking up of the assets, which would be a disaster and the company."
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I got our friend, me and Eduardo went and bought tasers, yeah, for real. And we called my friend Manny, who's a marshal, to come with us. I paid him for the day, his daily rate, to make sure everything was okay.
Smart.
Because it could have got violent for sure.
100%.
And so we went back in, and I got to work much earlier than him. So I was in there doing my normal work when he came in and saw me. He's like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" I was like, "You're fired." I was like, "Nope." It's like, oh. He's like, "I'm calling the police." I was like, "Oh, Manny's right here." So you talk to him, and Manny's like, "Aaron's name is on the lease, not yours. So if you call the Boca cops, they're going to kick you out." And he threw a little fit, went off, and he came back a few hours later back to the office and said "Okay, we got to work this out. I don't want you here anymore. I'm willing to make this work financially for you to leave." And so we ended up working out a deal where I could directly compete with the company, which is obviously when you sell a company or leave, there's usually a non-compete, not a compete. So what we ended up doing was he gave me his shares in some of our other businesses, like the business with Kai Green, business with Rob Bailey and Dana Lynn Bailey, and a few other things that we shared interest in. He gave me those, and I kept all of my shares in Blackstone. So he gave away everything to be the big boss. And so, our payments would be the same, just I'm not there anymore, and I got all of the ownership and everything else. And most importantly, two things. No liability on anything that he does in the future, because that's all on him. And then he gave me, in the deal, he signed off for me to compete directly, literally compete. So I took a day to be sad, literally one day to be sad. And then I woke up the next morning, I was like, okay, let's go kick his ass. let's go and plan out the next thing, get ready, and to crush them. And that was my motivation initially. That was a very short term, because I'm not a guy who like holds on to stuff. Probably like a character defect, how bad I am at holding a grudge. I'm just terrible at it. If somebody gets a big fight with me, if I liked the person before, it's very difficult for me to hold on to anything.
Right.
Which sounds good, but sometimes can be bad, because I can get bit more than once by somebody, So I ended up starting the company with Eric, Eduardo, and me. Sat down and we took an inventory, decided what we wanted to do differently, and created something in sports supplements. It's really unique because there's no company that really has a brand story, that knows who they are, that knows what they stand for, that has created anything iconic in terms of branding. So like when you think of like Rolex, you think of the crown, right? Apple, you think of the apple, right? Even IBM, you think of the I, right? And there's a lot of examples of iconic branding that are done where you can just see one letter of the IBM and you already know what it is, right? In sports supplements, that doesn't exist. There's never been a company like that. And really no company, they may have a cool product or a good name or a good formula, and they base everything around that. There's no real brand. And so
100%. I'm just thinking about it right now, and I'm like, yeah,
nothing. The closest thing there was Animal was a company that had like a community around it, where they had like a cult-like following kind of. They didn't have great products. So you're missing a big component of creating something. 100%. So like, Apple has awesome products. So you combine that with everything else, and you can create an actual brand. And so anyway, we went ahead did that. And so now Redcon1 employs 80 people full-time. We will hit my goal. My goal has always been $100 million a year. So that's been since me and PJ started, I was always like nine figures, right? Nine figures. Because it seemed like the craziest thing, just like when you do that, that's like next level. And so this year, I believe, unless there's something happens, that we'll hit that goal finally.
That's awesome.
And so we're sold in all the military bases. We sold direct on Amazon, Bodybuilding.com, all the websites. We're selling a lot of grocery stores now. We're just got into 536 Dick's Sporting Goods, or 20,000 gas stations. We're sold in 80 countries. So it's everywhere, and it's still growing fast. And none of that would be possible if it wasn't for the huge fight and all the drama that surrounded it, and everything that happened before it. So it's funny how, in life, right, bad things happen to everybody. You can't avoid it. So it's ultimately about how you react to the bad thing and what opportunities you grasp, how it could come good of it. And I think people often focus so much on whatever happened bad. They're like, woe is me, instead of thinking like, well, what opportunity did this provide?
They get stuck there.
Yeah, and I understand that. But for me, like, one day of being sad, and it was like, I woke up, I'm like, today I'm going to crush it. Or I'm going 100%. I'm not going to let this define me and be sad. I remember when we signed the contract and it was all done, he was like, PG's like, now you can go lay on the beach. I'll do all the work and you get all the money. So you just lay on the beach and relax, spend time with your family. You don't have to worry about anything now. I was like, okay, we'll see how that goes. So yeah.
Dude, there was a lot that you just talked about. And the biggest thing for me is that it's hitting home with me so hard.
You had a similar
situation. I'm at that phase now where I had those relationships start going in those directions that you just don't expect. I mean, I did not expect some of the things to transpire that they did. I'm like, yeah, we're in this. We're all in. We're good to go. But you see how the history and the past relationships there, kind of life changes and adapts and it evolves. Yeah. And watching you go through some of that process and talking through it, it's crazy because that's what came out of it was Redcon1.
Yeah.
Right. And through those moments, I'm sure it was an ass kicker. It was like, what is going on here? Like, this isn't what we expected. This isn't what we planned.
Sure.
But I think one of the main things, and I talked about this the other day, was getting over it quickly.
Yeah.
Just moving past it, taking your lickings and, taking a lump on the head and just figuring out what's the best thing that I can do right now with what I have. What's my next move?
Yep.
And not getting too hung up. Like, having vengeance or holding a grudge, all that's going to do is take energy away from you.
Yeah.
And it sounds like another example of like, I don't think that you would have been able to get to this point if you held on to it that hard.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to let it go, and that's really cool that you talked about the evolution, but also the branding Like, I just had to sit here, and the whole time you were talking, I'm like, damn, there really isn't any cool brands out there. And I say branding all the time when I say Redcon1.
Yeah.
And instantly I think of, boom, I'm already connected to branding, right? Everything that has a connection with the military, the verbiage, just everything that goes into it has a little special place in my heart,
Of course,
whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, but it's still cool. And ultimately, to figure out the bad things that happen to us, the situations that we get into, the adversity that we see, it forges us and allows us to be able to take that knowledge with us to do it better the next time, but also to be able to teach people about it. And just listening to your story, it's hitting home with me. It's like, it's normal. This evolution is normal of what guys go through, and it sucks, but embracing it and moving past it's one of the best things that you can do.
Yeah, for sure. And and being careful with who you associate yourself with, kind of going all the way back to the beginning. It's like the beginning of our conversation, picking a partner. See, I'm fortunate now because I have no partner, so I haven't had to do that with Redcon. But when people ask me, should I have a business partner, I always tell them, make sure two big things, right? That know that your role is different than the other person, so you're never like bumping heads. So this is what you do, this is what I do, right? And the other thing is make sure that the person is a value-added partner. So if you don't need him, don't have him. If you don't need it for some skill set or finances or something that you don't have, don't take anybody on. Because I could have done Blackstone.
That's huge.
Yeah.
What you just said was huge.
It's big, man.
I've heard guys try to validate that for me, but I think that's a very clear. If you're bumping heads, eventually you're going to disagree on something.
Yes.
And that's not a great place to be.
Yeah. Especially, so what made my whole partnership dispute kind of unique is that it happened at like a really good point. But imagine if we had bad points, we really had. I mean, I can only imagine it would have deteriorated a lot faster because, in drama or money troubles or something, that's when people usually have problems. But I think for him and I, our past, what we were doing, he was seeing me do a lot of the decision making, and he wanted to do that same decision making. And so he was getting overlooked a lot because I was pulling the trigger faster, being like doing stuff quicker. And so it kind of like an ego thing happened.
Yeah, ego or authority type of position.
Because we were both doing the same thing together. He just was doing maybe less of it or not around as much, So, one good thing would have been, not that it would have saved that relationship, but if he was doing marketing and I was doing operations and we never crossed over, sure would have been less opportunity to fight.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you shared that because I'm sure even for me personally, I learn a lot from those situations. Yeah. Setting yourself up for success in the future, who you partner with. A lot of guys are like, it's a marriage. Yeah. You're essentially signing a contract to be married to somebody. Oh. And, we all know how that goes in a lot of cases. Yeah. But at the same time with business, it's that much more important to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Sure. And having that contrast. That's what I struggle with. Like right now I'm running several businesses. Like I pray every day. I'm like, please God, let an operations guy that's awesome going to come in and enhance the skills that I don't have. Yeah. Right. But they have to contrast me. If they're the guy that needs to get on the mat to teach, to talk about mindset, well then we're going to compete against each other at some point. Well, that's cool. So through that story, like that's how Redcon1 came about. So there you have it, guys. And I think when you say branding, the one thing I want to dive into with you is when I think Aaron Singerman, my head is like marketing. And I think you've done such an amazing job with marketing.
Thank you.
And guys that are entrepreneurs, guys that are veterans, guys that are getting out trying to start their own business, I think that's a hard thing to do because I lived in the shadows for 12 years, didn't post, didn't even know what the hell IG was. Right. I'm like, hashtag, what is this? I have to talk on camera.
You guys didn't even take pictures of yourselves.
Nothing.
So nothing out
Nothing.
There,
And now guys are running around with GoPros on their head. But my first couple of videos I did with the NRA, I'm like, I was literally like, what do I do with my hands? I don't even know what I'm talking about right now. But that evolution has been interesting because I've seen that you have to take the time to understand how to communicate to your customers.
Sure.
Because if you don't engage today in the prime Amazon world where you think about something, it's on your doorstep in 6 hours, it's like, okay, we're living in a different age.
Yes.
So with that being said, understanding with all the experience that you have, what advice would you give a young entrepreneur that is getting ready to brand or market or go into the world of communication?
Yeah. So the first, most important thing I tell them is to find a unique product. You have to understand like why would somebody even buy what you're selling. So that's the thing is like, so I've had people come up and tell me like, I'm starting a t-shirt business. what do you think I should do? I'm like, t-shirt business. Like, why would I buy your t-shirt? Like, what are you going to do that's going to engage or interest me to buy your t-shirt? Because I could buy all these other t-shirts from brands that are more established that I think are cool already. Or people will compare and be like, it's going to be like a t-shirt. It's grunt style. That's a popular shirt, right? Like, it's going to be like, so why wouldn't I just buy a grunt style then? Why buy yours? And they're like, ooh, that's a tough question, right? So you got to have like an idea of something that's different about your thing. And so like that is a very important thing, because otherwise you're just like everybody else. So number one is find a product that's different in some way, so you can fit in some sort of white space, or you do something better, make a better mousetrap or whatever. You know what I mean? There has to be something unique or better about what you're doing, or else
100%.
there's no reason to do it. And the other thing, the biggest thing, is that it takes a long time. Don't quit, right? If you quit, you're definitely not going to do it. That's a guarantee.
There's no option.
So you can't quit. And people want to see stuff happen fast. So like my story of Redcon1 in 3 years, if you just take that on its face, just that, right? That's extremely fast amount of time to create a successful business. But the truth is that there was many, many more years before that to get Redcon1 going. All the Blackstone Labs time, that 5 years that I was doing that, right? If I didn't have those 5 years, then I wouldn't have created Redcon. I wouldn't have had the experience or the relationships to create it. So it's, it takes a long time. So to create a big, successful company, if it happens really fast, unless it's in technology or something, more than likely it's not going to last very long, because it's a fad of something you're capitalizing on, something quick that goes away. Something long-lasting takes a long time. So people are in the age of Instagram and social media. People quit real easy and real fast.
Instant gratification. Yep.
Yeah, they want. Where's my Lambo? I've been working hard for 6 months, right? It's not. This is not how it works. And a lot of people, especially young people, think it's going to happen fast.
Yeah. How many supplement companies did you have before Redcon1? Or at least that you were involved
I had Prime Nutrition, Blackstone Labs, Run Everything Labs, Dynamic Muscle, Iron Addicts, so 6.
And are you still involved with any of those?
No. I sold my shares of Blackstone in the beginning of 2017. The idea sounded like it was going to work out, where he did, basically we had 50-50 in terms of the money that got divvied out at the end of every month or whatever. But it didn't work out that way, because somehow the profit of the business seemed to go down quite a bit.
Weird.
Yeah, weird how that happened. Now the numbers did drop significantly, but the profit just seemed to be gone. So I ended up selling my shares for very, very little money compared to what it would have been worth before, but I just wanted to be done with it. And then each one of those companies, I still own Run Everything Labs with Rob and Dana. I'm in the process of giving back my shares to Kai Green and Dynamic Muscle for nothing. I like him personally, and I'm too busy to do justice to helping the brand. So as a friend, I don't think the nice thing to do is to keep the shares when I'm doing really well. I like him a lot. So I could say, hey, you do everything, and I'm going to just sit back. But instead I said, here, take it back. We're not done with the process yet, but it'll be done soon. And that's it. The Prime Nutrition was purchased, it's gone. CT Fletcher brand shut down. Yeah, I mean, this is my only focus.
Yeah, well, the reason I asked you that was because, you said don't quit, right? And then you talked about the challenges. Mm-hmm. So, like, I'm a young entrepreneur that has several businesses, and it's refreshing to hear at the same time, it's a commitment. Guys think they want to start businesses, and they're like, oh, wait a second, I'm a little in over my head here, because you just talked about 5 supplement companies, 5 legit supplement companies. That
multi-millions of dollars.
Exactly. Like, you have reps and experience that again and again and again have led you right where you are today.
Yes.
Now, the first one, could you have predicted where you were going to be here today?
No way. Even when I started Redcon1, I would never in a million years have told you, like, I wouldn't have predicted that we'd be where we are now. It would have been, if I would have, it would have been extremely arrogant to say, oh, we're going to do this, because it's just not a feasible thing generally. So, it's a surprise. It surprises me. Like we said when we were walking back in the packing area, you said, do you ever take a minute to stop and look around and think about it? Whenever I do, and it's probably not enough, it still kind of blows my mind, to say you have 80 employees. I mean, I walk around, I don't know some of the people.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's very.
I walked in there. I mean, you guys have a heck of an operation going on, and I went to the warehouse. By the way, we need to hang that flag up.
Yeah. We were working on trying to find a spot. It's the biggest flag ever, right? I feel
huge.
like that flag is must have been for like a car dealership or something, right? With a huge pole, because when we tried to hang it up when I bought it, it drags on the ground, right? So
Yeah.
it can fit in that warehouse though.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know, there's a big warehouse that he has now, and there's a huge American flag that was sitting there. So when I went up on the top, we were doing a photo shoot, and I looked down and I saw this little spot of just this blue and some white stars, and I was like, that thing needs to go up. So hopefully I can help you guys out with that before you roll.
Yeah. It's freaking 50 feet by 100 feet or something like that. That's
awesome. Yeah, you're gonna put that like up in the back.
Yeah, I've been wanting to hang it for years because I bought it like years ago, and I thought, what a cool thing to have the whole wall covered, you know. But then when we actually tried it, it was like half of it was on the ground. So now we could do it.
Yeah. So just recapping what we talked about, you know, from where you started struggling all the way up into today with all the challenges, you know, and it's just it's nice to hear that no matter what you're going through, no matter where you're at and challenging, whether it's business or personal life, that there's a pathway for you. But I think the biggest thing that I'm getting out of this and the similarities that we have are bringing that thought process into our daily action. Like the fact that you carried that piece of paper around, like that's something that I won't forget, because it took that type of reminder for you to be that consistent with it, to say that I am going to follow through with these tasks no matter what. So whether it took me a year or whether it takes me for the rest of my life, these will happen. And I think you have to convict yourself of that. I really do. I mean, I love seeing guys that are being successful, how they think, how they move, how they interact with everything they've got going on around them, because we're always looking to refine these processes. So it's really awesome to hear, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
The last thing that I really wanted to cover down on was being a father.
Yes.
You know, you've got 3 boys. I've got 2 boys and 2 daughters. And to me, like you said before, the success in this life, the legacy that we leave is so important. I mean, I have gone through my purpose and tried to forge in my mind, like, what is my purpose? I mean, I literally stared death in the face multiple times, and so did you. And again and again and again, every night going out to operate, I had to say to myself, like, well, I'm going to go put my life at risk. What am I doing this for? Yeah. You know, so I had to say that to myself. So I am wholeheartedly convicted of what I stand for. So being that I'm a father now and looking at my kids, I'm like, there is no greater purpose than watching these kids grow, knowing that I'm responsible for these little humans. So as a father now of 3 young boys, you know, active, healthy young boys, what are the biggest takeaways that you've had as a father, being an entrepreneur, going through these challenges? You know, I'm just interested to hear, how are you taking your experience and conveying that to your children now so they set them up for success? That's really what I want to get into.
So, like we talked earlier, there's no book on being a father. There's no real wisdom that works for everybody. For me personally, I was very fortunate to have a really great mom and dad. All the bad stuff that happened in my life is my own bad decisions, not anything that they did or any reaction of some bad thing, right? But on the flip side, my mom and dad were very naive. You know, they were just extremely naive. They didn't do drugs. They didn't party. They were like very, very, you know, normal and conservative, right? So like a tiny, very small story is when I was a kid, when I was 13 or 14, I had a pound of weed in my room. And my dad and mom found it. I didn't know they had found it. But every day, you know, kids would come over and I'd sell a little bit of weed to my friends, right? And so over that year, I said I was 13 or 14. I probably was 15 or 16 because I was almost moved out then. So after that, I had sold all of it. They confronted me and they said, this bag had a whole big thing of weed in it. And over the last 8 weeks or whatever, it's all been little by little going away, which is so crazy. Like, imagine you see your kid has a pound of weed. You're going to wait 8 weeks. Like, I would immediately freak out.
Don't think I would have waited.
No. So
like,
they waited. Hey. Yeah. So it's all gone, right? And I told them, I'm like, yeah, I mean, my friends, you know, their parents are like really not cool. And they've been coming over and they just get a little bit at a time because they don't want to bring it all back to their house. And now it's all gone, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. They're not going to come back and get it anymore. And my mom and dad were like, okay. So tell your friends, do not store the weed at our house. I'm like, okay, good. So that's like kind of example of, you know, here they are, like, wait 8 weeks, and then after all of it, they totally bought my nonsense, you know, that they're just coming over for a little bit every day. So that's who they were. They're great, but they're very, very naive. And my dad was the best. He was a great dad, but he didn't know to tell me a lot of stuff. So I've made it my mission, especially with Asher, because he's old enough to understand. Aiden, certainly Elijah at 1 and a little, almost 2, can't really get it. Aiden is almost at a point where I can start really working on Aiden. We do a little bit, but Asher, he's been my experiment in terms of how to really build character and teach the important lessons to a child. So if you ask Asher, you say Singermans don't, he'll tell you quit, right? Singermans don't quit. Say every day when he goes to school, I tell him I want you to work your hardest. So, and he'll always tell you that Singermans work their hardest, right? We do what I call it a Singerman lesson. So whenever I put them to bed at night, I read them the book, or we play a game on the phone or something that they have to limit the games because they always want to play a game instead of read a book. So I try to almost always read a book, but after we do a Singerman lesson, and it'll be about discipline, or it'll be about, I'll do all kinds of stuff. I'll try to think of something new every time to teach him, and we go over it. And another thing is I'm extremely repetitive with him, saying the same things over and over again. Asher, I've started telling him about drugs. So I tell him, because he's got, there's a genetic, he's almost 7. There's a genetic component to drugs. So I believe that if there's addiction, that I have addiction, that potential runs in the family. So I make sure to tell him that drugs are for losers over and over again. If you said drugs are, he'll say for losers. And you ask him, well, what about you? He said, I'm a winner. And this is something this is not it's literally, you ask him, he's going to pop these answers quick because we've done it so many times that I've told him, and he understands a little bit of what drugs even are, not totally, but he gets it to the degree that they're for losers. And I think that if you tell somebody that enough, if it's ingrained in them, then they're going to avoid it. Now there's no guarantee, but I think that being repetitive with him is very, very important. And it definitely seems like it's working because he's he seems to really internalize it. I tell him about, making sure that you protect the kids that need protecting. If somebody's weak, or having a problem, somebody's getting bullied, what do? You help that kid. You make sure that you, if you see something like that, you do the right thing by helping them. Never, ever pick on another kid. Don't say insulting things. Don't touch another person unless they touch you. I teach them to, that it's okay to defend yourself. You don't ever do anything like that to anybody unprovoked, right? So I do my best to do those things every day, and because that's the kind of stuff that nobody told me. My dad never did anything like that. That's not being derogatory about him. It's just he just didn't know. Who did that? Nobody.
Yep. I think we learn a lot from our parents. I learned a lot from my parents.
Yeah.
I had amazing parents. You talk about the weed thing. My parents weren't so naive. They put the pressure on me. It was like a second they found out. They were pretty smart about it. And I think they were both very street smart. So it was I had a hard time getting away with anything. Yeah. So I was just constantly running away from them. But it was an interesting journey. But when you talk about interacting with the kids, what do you think? Do you think quality time is better or quantity time?
Quality time, definitely. Just being around definitely is good, right? Being around is good, but if you're having time with them where you're able to focus on them, just like how I put them to bed and read the book, that certainly, me doing that is much more valuable than most dads come home, lay on the couch, drink a beer, watch TV. Yeah, that's nothing. You're not really big with them. So,
no.
I can tell you that for me, when my dad would pay attention to me and we would do something fun, that made a big impact. I can think of times like that. But him just sitting around watching the football game on Sundays, it didn't really mean anything to me. Then when I was older, I watched it with him to some degree or another. But, that's passive. It doesn't really I don't feel like it really counts 100%. So it's important, especially if somebody's like me or you, if you're really busy and you got a lot going on, taking time and making it so for example, Sunday's family day for us.
Yep.
So I dedicate Sunday to family day, and I try not to look at my phone. I try not to make business calls. I'm not perfect, but I do my best. And then I spend the whole day with the family. And doing that Sunday, I think is huge because they remember it. They talk about it. What are we doing for family day? Daddy's not going to work. It makes a big difference to them. So
it does.
Cutting out those pieces of time and dedicating them, I think, is more important than just trying to generally be around.
Yeah, 100%. And it creates predictability too. Is there any specific things that you do to build trust with them? So obviously that bond between a father and a son. Do you do anything specific to be like, I'm going to do this intentionally, even being with them before they go to bed? Like that's going to build trust that you're going to be there. But do you have anything in the top of your mind that you would do to build trust with your kids?
The thing that I think I'm really good about is I tell them I love them all the time, and I hug them and kiss them. I was very affectionate with my dad, and I saw kids growing up, friends with kids that were not at all. Not that they didn't love their dad or their mom, but they just were not touchy-feely. And I think, or not even say I love you. So I make a big point. Like, there's no question my kids know I love them. There's zero question. Same thing with my wife. I'm very affectionate to the point where she'll be like, "Leave me alone," because I want that. I think it's very important that they know that they're wanted and they're cared about. And same thing with the missus. Like she needs to know that she is important. People that don't have any physical contact or connection with their significant others. If I stop doing that with her now, she'd be like, "What's going on? There's something weird going on, right?"
Yeah. Well, it inspired me for you to talk about, the kids, because like I get home late sometimes and I'll take, 30, 40 minutes that I'm eating into the time with her. So there's that balance of like protecting that time and being disciplined about it. I think that's something that inspired me. But, it's been awesome, man. Honestly, just listening to your journey has given me some fortitude and some of the challenges that I'm going through with the business.
Awesome.
And this, like, I'm super excited. Like, one thing that you said to me today is you wake up every day and say, this is going to be the best day ever.
Yeah.
And I love that attitude because it is.
Yeah.
And that's the thoughts that you need to bring to the forefront of your mind. Again, convincing yourself like, this is where I am right in this very moment.
Yeah.
So I need to focus on this being the greatest day. Tomorrow is going to be the greatest day. Having that enthusiasm, because you are the example of it. You've shown it. You've set that standard of being like, this can happen through consistent action. So
100%.
It's been awesome, man.
Thank you so much, Dom. It's been a pleasure having you here in Boca and doing the show with you. And I'm super excited to listen to the show. I think that's going to be really cool, and I can't wait for people to hear it because you did something smart. You built up some, so there's a lot of good stuff coming. You've already done a lot of great content.
Yeah,
so.
I'm pumped. This whole series is going to be awesome. Is there anything else that you want guys to know about?
No, I think you covered it all. I mean, whenever I do any kind of radio show or interview or anything like that, I always, I'm never one. I mean, we plug stuff, because we're talking about it, but I rather people just like, I'm not one to push stuff, I guess. I guess that's the best way to say it. So I just like being on here. I'm glad we had such a cool
you don't need
conversation.
to when you got a badass brand, but I'm going to do it for you. Make sure you guys go check out Redcon1.com. They're doing some amazing stuff. Like I said, it's what I'm taking every day. But Aaron, it's been awesome to have you on, man.
Thank you,
Dom.
And
keep crushing everything with your business.
Appreciate it. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, man.